us. I think for me, it's unnerving to see it so much in the Black family because we all try to stay connected, even though it's not healthy. I will definitely say that. I don't feel like you have to stay in toxic environments with family just because. I've never subscribed to that, but I see this decline happening beyond just a Black family at this point.
All right, we'd like to welcome you guys back to another wonderful episode of the Beyond I Do podcast. And boy, let me tell you,
this is a treat.
yes,
This is a treat for
yes,
us. This is a treat for you.
yes,
even though
definitely a
you may
treat
not
for you.
know it.
Yep.
We have two guests, very special guests we met through a podcasting platform. So both of them have their own platforms that they are that they have and that they speak from. And we are going to make sure to include all of that information for you because once you hear the conversation, you're going to want more from both of them.
Definitely.
Our first guest, Miss Kendall Williams.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
She is her platform. She advocates for moms. It's Mom's True Tea podcast. She's an author. She's a speaker, and she is dynamic.
Yes, she is.
She says things that a lot of us think, and we are not comfortable saying out loud. And I'm so thankful that she's created this safe place for mothers to be able to voice those
Kendall
things.
keeps it real.
Absolutely.
For our generation and 100 for the new generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we have Brother Jeff St. James, who is a therapist, and
his platform is Ask a Brother.
Ask a Brother, so, yes. Yeah. And he breaks that thing down from a therapist standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, and we discussing the Black family dynamic. And boy,
I will say that some of the things that he says, it challenged my thinking.
Yes.
But he is a millennial, so there's that aspect. He is a Black man, there's that aspect. He is I don't know how long he's been married, but newish when it comes to marriage. So he can speak from the perspective of being a single professional and a married professional, and all of those different perspectives come together. And he challenged some of my thinking.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So we are going to move past this and get into it because I'm telling you, this is going to be a 2-part episode, and you don't want to miss any part of it.
No, you don't.
All right. Again, we want to thank Kendall and Jeff for joining us. We're so excited about this conversation, but before we get into it, if you could, Kendall, start out and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your platform. And then, Jeff, we'd like to hear from you as well.
Kendall L. Williams with Mom's True Tea podcast and platform, and author of Reclaiming Your Identity. I am the truth teller for moms. I speak the authentic truth on all the topics like estrangement, parental abuse, and all the taboo topics that most don't want to speak to when it comes to parenting and motherhood. So that's what my platform is about.
Okay.
And my name is Jeff James, and I go by Ask a Brother, which is my new podcast that I've been out. It's been out for about 2 months. I think my current goal is just to not get kicked off of social media and to go wherever truth takes me, no matter what the topic is.
All right.
That's awesome.
So our conversation today is going to center around Black family dynamics. And, you know, we've heard through the years the decline of the Black family, and we want to kind of pick apart some of the things that have led to that decline, and then discuss some ways that we can start to rebuild. And then based on each, platform, we all have different perspectives in addition to just personal experience. So we'll start with the big question. Like what's going on with Black families? Is this something that, is there this big decline? Is there this conflict between men and women, or is this just like the media pushing these things, and that's what we're accepting?
Who's gonna go first? Because I could start.
You go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I don't think I know we're talking about Black families, but I don't think it's just us anymore. We were the cornerstone. What other ethnicities were looking at as the respect and the honor and the family and all of those things. And now you're seeing it, especially coming from my perspective and my platform. I'm seeing this across every ethnicity. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I know our main topic is on the Black family, but I believe it's all families at this point. It's not just us. I think for me, it's unnerving to see it so much in the Black family because we all try to stay connected, even though it's not healthy. I will definitely say that. I don't feel like you have to stay in toxic environments with family just because. I've never subscribed to that, but I see this decline happening beyond just a Black family at this point.
Yeah, I agree that it's definitely pretty prevalent across different racial and ethnic groups. I do think that it's primarily unique to Western countries, Westernized
Mm-hmm.
countries. I don't think that this is what we're seeing to the degree in terms of the disintegration of family breakdown is universal in all cultures, all countries. I don't. I think it's very much something that as we've modernized, I think our need and view of community has shifted and changed, point blank period. I
What?
think that as we become more educated, as we
Mm-hmm.
become more self-sufficient financially, as we've opened up the pool of who we're able and open to date and pursue, that's actually resulted in a lot of us not feeling like we need each other in the way that previous generations probably thought.
What has led to, what do y'all think has led to that? Because when, like you mentioned, the ability to, you have more options when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
dating and things like this. Like, you would think that in a world where your options are open to you, that that would lead to improvement or refinement of some sort. But we've essentially started a declining of that. So, what do you think has contributed to that?
I heard Jeff mention the education and the fact that we're becoming more educated, more informed, we have more options.
Mm-hmm.
And that most likely that is part of the reasoning. I don't think it's justifiable as a reason,
Mm-hmm.
because regardless of how educated or how much we can date outside or marry outside of our, well, even if you marry outside, that child is still, or your family is still going to be a part of the Black community regardless. Your
Mm-hmm.
child is
That's true.
going to be identified as a Black child. So, and even with your education, I don't feel like you being educated or becoming more knowledgeable or even breaking away from religion, which a lot of us it has been ingrained in us. And I know
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about that a little bit later, most likely. But I just don't feel like those, although they may be valid reasons, I just don't feel like they are logical reasons as to
Mm-hmm.
why it's declining. I think that people are becoming more selfish, more self absorbed, and lack a little bit of self awareness. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lack of empathy. I think there's also a lack of grace. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is
Oh
a lot
yes.
of the reason why our families are declining. And not only that, like he said, not only that, these European cultures are seeping into our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So
definitely.
if we really want to talk about it, that is
Right.
for
Right.
me, that is what I see because
Mm-hmm.
our children are starting to act like children that don't look like us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, I
So
agree
where
that
does
I
it
don't
get?
think, yeah, I don't think the reasons we listed are actual excuses, but I do think they are explanations. And when Kendall mentioned about people becoming more selfish, more prideful, more ego based in how they can move now, they're enabled to do that because they can take care of themselves now.
Mm.
Whereas in previous and earlier generations, you had to be more reliant on the family, on the community, whereas
Yeah.
now you don't.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that the negative thoughts and feelings that we have towards each other, that's exacerbated by a modern environment where we can literally kind of move on without you. And that applies
But
to,
can you though?
yeah, in a way, there's going to be consequences when you do. There's
Mm.
going to be pros and cons when you make either of these choices. But when you leave a marriage, when you leave your mother, when you leave your father, when you leave your kids, you can actually leave them. And people do. People become estranged, people become divorced, but there's usually pros and cons and consequences that comes with it. It's just easier today because people now have the means and ability to do that financially, socially. Whereas before, if there was only one or two small churches in the whole area and work was hard to come by, you may not be cutting off family and friends quite as quickly,
Mm.
even if you felt you were justified to do so.
Mm.
Whereas now, when you have optionality, you have choice, you have freedom of movement, you have freedom of everything that you can name. It's shockingly enough, not shockingly enough, all the countries where we are the freest, that's where the family and communal breakdowns are most present and prevalent. So I think that they go hand in hand. Like I said, I don't think that it's a excuse, but I do think it absolutely explains why people and children are able to move much more freely without thinking about their family and lover and friends quite as much the same.
Mm.
Um, recently, I say recently, but it pops up every now and then. You'll see a meme on social media or a post on social media asking, why can't we have marriages like our grandparents? And, you know, 9 times out of 10, when that's posted, it's posted as a positive type thing.
Yeah.
But if we really look deeply into it, um, I know I know my great grandfather had sets of siblings of kids, so is
Yeah.
that really ideal? But when we think about the institution of marriage, because that's where that traditional marriage is where the family
Mm.
begins, where it's formed. How has that decline come into to play with this breakdown, and why has that decline? Why can't we stay married like grandma and grandpa?
Well, first, grandma tolerated a lot of shit that I probably would not tolerate. First and
Mhm.
foremost, because my husband's not going around the corner to Susie's house, and my kids are not going to have siblings around the corner.
Right.
And I think a lot of them tolerated a lot of things because they didn't have the ability or the liberty to be able to vote, to have their own homes, to
Hmm.
have their
Hmm.
own credit cards. That didn't happen until what, the 80s?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So many things that they husbands were like slave masters. So you know what I'm saying? That been encoded into the DNA of not only our men but our women as well, right?
Mm.
So grandma tolerated a lot of different things that women today aren't going to tolerate. As someone
Mm.
who was married previously myself, I tolerated a lot of things that me at this big age I would never tolerate. Thank God I have an amazing husband. Shout out to you, baby. But
Mm.
that has changed my trajectory and my
Hmm.
narrative of what marriage looks like. It looks safe, but I didn't see that growing up. My mother tolerated a lot of stuff. My father was abusive. He was a drug addict at some point. My mother married and divorced my father 2 times because she wanted that nucleus of a family.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes.
And then eventually, when she saw the impact that it was having on me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, with his drug addiction and all of the things that was happening around that, and the domestic abuse that was taking place in the home, and she was somewhat abusive as well, she finally divorced my father and moved on. So I think where we are in today's society, in the younger society, I don't think a lot of times they really marry for love all the time either. I think some
Mm.
of them marry for opportunity,
Hmm.
some of them
Hmm.
marry based on what it looks like. They want to have these big, huge weddings so they can post it all over social media, and then they're
Hmm.
divorced
Mm.
1 to 2 years later. So I think the priorities have shifted, and definitely the beliefs and the traditions have shifted, because I know we're not going to tolerate a lot of the things that Big Mama tolerated.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so when people say why aren't marriages like what they used to be, and a follow up question is obviously is marriage even still seen as a prize anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot about, well, first, marriage is not really a prize to those that can only think about and prioritize themselves, their wants and their feelings.
Mm.
So it makes sense where,
That part.
of course, you wouldn't see marriage as a prize if you can't think about more than just yourself and your needs and your wants. But
Yep.
number two, how can it be considered a prize if there's incentives and benefits to ending the marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we have to acknowledge that as over time, as the divorce rate increased, as single parent households increased, there were certain incentives both from the federal government in terms of subsidies and with the way family court moves. Somebody's benefiting from a lot of these marriages no longer staying.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So from both sides, it's like if you have incentives for people to leave the relationship, and this is a great question, depending on the state and jurisdiction in the U.S., can you legally get a court to extract resources from another adult person who you're no longer committed to, no longer living with, and no longer married to?
Mm.
So again, we have natural built-in processes that makes the process for leaving actually quite advantageous for some people. Does that mean everybody uses it for that
Right.
reason? No.
Yeah.
Some people just, some people just leave and say, this is toxic. I'm out. I don't even want anything from you.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a
Mm-hmm.
built in component to the way in which our government approaches marriages, where there are incentives for people to leave, and honestly, you could say reward packages. And
Mm.
so, it's one thing to be like, you know what, we need help with the children. That's cool. That makes sense to me. But when you're an able-bodied adult that's no longer living with another person, you're no longer doing life with them, you're no longer having sex with them, you're no longer married to them, but they still have to subsidize your lifestyle.
That I
Of
don't agree
course,
with.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
course, there's going to be people on both sides now who are starting to see marriage as quite less appealing. And then the last
Mm-hmm.
question I ask is, or two-part question is, are there things that people in the past traditionally only got from the opposite sex when they got married that they
Mm.
now can get without getting married?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if all the things that 100, 200, 400 years ago I could have only gotten if I got married, if I met your father, if I met your whole family, and the social shame and stigmatization that came with not being able to provide and pay for your dowry and do this or do that, I can skip all of that now. I'm not gonna have a child. I can have sex.
Right.
Yeah.
We can live together. So how can marriage be still seen as a high ideal with all the things that normally or historically and traditionally were reserved for it, now we all can have access to? And then lastly, are those same things that I'm talking about that you would say you can get in marriage, do they decline once people do get married? Does sex decrease for some people, or a lot of
Some.
people complain about sex? Do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Yeah.
people complain about romance be declining? So when he was dating me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he did this, and this.
Yeah.
When me and her were just dating, or she was just a girlfriend, we had sex 4 times, 5 times a week. I couldn't keep her
Mm-hmm.
off of me. What is it about the marriage experience for a lot of couples where sex and romance decreases and people are thinking about what life was like before they got married and being like, I tended to get almost all of these things without marriage. And if this doesn't work out, somebody may potentially benefit more than the other and even get a reward package for this marriage coming to an
Yeah.
end. I can blame people on an individual level, but those are all structural things that most people have heard or experienced.
Right.
So that makes sense why for a lot of people marriage isn't really seen as a prize for most people. And I'll be honest with you, talk to many married people, especially ones that have been married 10 plus years. Do you run into a lot? You got to actually search for people who are happily married.
Right.
That's true. And
You
you know,
know,
It's so bleak.
and it doesn't.
it's the
Bleak
truth.
outlook.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
I'm married.
genuinely
Yeah.
happy. Not
Yes.
that fake
Right.
Yeah, not that
facade,
fake stuff.
Right.
what
Yeah.
they put on social media. Like my
Right.
husband and I, we literally go to bed with our legs intertwined
Right.
every
Right.
Yes,
single
yes,
night.
yes,
Last night I was literally up on his forehead while he was sleeping, kissing his forehead. We
yeah.
Right.
hold hands
Mm-hmm.
before we go. Like what we portray. First of all, we don't try to prove anything to anybody.
Right.
Y'all
Right.
Right.
by
Mm-hmm.
now y'all know who I am. I can't be fake.
Mm-hmm.
But we are genuine, like that is literally my best friend.
Right.
But we
Right.
know
Right.
people
Right.
who look good on paper. We
Right.
Oh
know
yeah.
couples who look good on social media. We
Yep.
know couples that we have
Uh-huh.
been around them and literally just left their homes and they weren't even talking or were arguing. And
Yep.
we getting in the car like, we got to get the hell out of
Mm-hmm.
here
Oh
Right.
and
yeah.
go.
Yeah. You
And
feel the
then
energy.
next thing you know, you see that wife post on social media how amazing her husband
Uh-huh.
is.
Uh-huh.
And I'm
and
like,
you
y'all
know,
are, that needs to be studied.
and you
Right.
know, it doesn't
Yeah.
help. It doesn't help as far as what you were saying, Jeff, about the incentives. When
Mm-hmm.
you look on and you see, I don't know, basketball player has to fork up
Mm-hmm.
$42,000 a month for
Mm-hmm.
child support and alimony or whatever. That
Crazy.
doesn't help. So it's like, when these young girls see this and it's like, well, I just get married to an athlete, and if it don't work out, I'm gonna be set for life.
Oh, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So
I
how
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and just to clarify, this isn't my viewpoint personally of marriage. This is my observation of why
Wow.
reasons for why people would opt in. I have a very close cousin of mine, and me and him joke around that he has children, he's unmarried, and we were talking and hanging out on my bachelor party, and I was like, yeah, man, like when you get married, he said probably never, bro,
Mm.
Mm,
and his viewpoints were very similar to these, which is like I can live independently, I can have kids, I get along with the mother of my children, so like I'm confused at and I can
mm,
access other women when I need to. So what
Mm.
exactly am I missing? Like if he couldn't have access to children, or if he couldn't have access to sex without
right.
marriage,
yeah.
what do you think him and most men that think like him would do? They would adjust.
Right.
So if men are the gatekeepers of marriage, women are the gatekeepers of sex and children.
Wow.
So if you want the marriage to be seen as more of a prize, two of the three things I just listed, somebody's going to have to decide who's going to have access to it.
Right.
Mm,
So if you're still willing to give sex, and if you're still willing to give children, you probably got to stop complaining about less and less men being open and interested in marriage. Those things went hand in hand throughout most countries, most civilizations, throughout most of human history once marriages started about. And we in modern times separated them.
Hmm.
And now we're shocked that people don't value marriage anymore.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. If I can get everything else without it, a lot of people aren't going to see it the same way.
That's that's so sad.
Hmm.
That's
It
and
really is.
like listening to you, Kendall, and you talk about your relationship, and then obviously with us, we're best friends. We enjoy each other's company, and
Mm-hmm.
to me, when you come in contact with those couples, like you can
Oh
tell if
yeah.
a couple likes each
Yeah.
other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know for me, the marriage has been incentive for me to improve. I want
Mm,
to bring the best version of myself because I feel like he deserves that because he has done so much for me and for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so to listen to you, Jeff, and how you're breaking it down, and it's true.
yes,
It's
definitely
true.
true.
It's like, okay, so where do we go from here? How do we make, and I think that's part of what we do is we get couples and we're putting couples up here to tell their story, and we have people come on and they're talking about what to do to strengthen your relationship. But what else do you do when I know for us, for like our children are adults, and my daughter said, I'll never have what you and dad have. And so I'm like, well, I
Mm,
mean, you're supposed to show them and then they're
Yeah.
supposed to see that.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
so what do we do to make it more attractive to young people? And I mean, we can say
don't have sex or have children until you're married, but how did that work for us?
Right.
You
Work for
know,
none of us.
At all.
what do we do to start to repair and rebuild that structure?
And before y'all answer that, I just wanted to reiterate on what Jeff was saying about your cousin and what he was saying. As someone who is in a happy marriage, as someone who is in a success, a great marriage, I think the sadness is your cousin will never experience that fullness of a fulfilled relationship. And I think that's something that, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get that emotion displayed enough to men to see, okay, there is a benefit when you find that great significant other, that you're going to have that peace to sustain you for life, that support, that everything that you feel, about your partner. Some of these brothers will never experience that. Some of these women will never experience that. And it's, how do you package that? How do you market that? You know what I'm saying?
I'll speak on both as a millennial, as a young married guy, and a guy who's both been married and single, and live both versions of what we're talking about. The first is to acknowledge is that everybody doesn't want it. Everybody doesn't want it, and that's fine. Everybody doesn't want it. Everybody isn't interested in it. And then number two, I think it's really, really important for the people who currently have it and the people who want it to try to do life together. What I
Okay.
think tends to happen is you'll have married people, let's say married guys or married women, hanging out with their homeboys or girlfriends who have an entirely different mindset.
Yep.
Yes.
And when something's going on in the confines of the relationship, are the people you're surrounding yourself with pushing you to work on the relationship or to leave? The funny saying that's been going on social media is about single women keeping other women single. It's real. Where if your girlfriends aren't supportive of a relationship with a man that you deem is actually a good guy, when you two have issues, when you're telling them your issues, you tend to tell them the version that makes him look bad, and you look at minimum neutral, let alone look good. Or you're telling family, it's the same thing. Family and friends are going to start to view the other person as the problem, and they're not looking to push you to work out your issues with each other. So surrounding yourself and being around and celebrating love, celebrating marriages, celebrating engagements and relationships, that's the means of, from a social dynamic, being excited about that stuff. But number two, as a parent, parents that are able to put money away over the course of their child's life, and when they become adults, a lot of parents put money away and say, well, I'm going to have X amount of money set aside for you to get a home, or for you to get or towards college. I think that in the Black community, we need to start setting aside some of that money towards marriage gifts, and making it known, this is what you'll be using as a down payment towards your wedding or your house when you get married. And knowing that pot of money sitting there, but until I can do all this other stuff in life, but I'm not going to get access to this money my dad or mom or parents have set aside for me as a great reward until I meet this mark. So I can have a bunch of children, but if I'm not married, I'm not getting that money.
Won't they marry for the wrong reason?
No, and I'll tell you, and I'll
incentive to
nope,
get to the money.
no, and I'll explain why. Because in historical times, when you were paying for a dowry, or you were paying a cost to even have access to have a wife, no one would say, well, you were marrying for money. That was just the prerequisite, expected social, cultural, traditional resources to show that you were coming from means, that you had something. So now reimagine a man that's thinking about, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to date seriously and get married. And there's two women, equal everything, equal education, both beautiful, come from great homes, great environments. They love the idea of marriage. They both don't have any children. And I'm looking at both of them, and everything is equal. Everything's equal. And one family says, well, if you marry our daughter, we're also going to bless you with a down payment or a home, or whatever, thing that we want to use it for as a wedding gift. I'm gonna have to think seriously and say, well, wait a minute, hold on. If everything's equal, they
Yeah.
both beautiful and they both treat me well and they both see value in me, and her family is willing to support us in this way, I'd have to strongly consider that. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that the sole reason for why I'm marrying them is because there's money attached to it. Most men I don't think would do that. But number two, uh, I could be wrong in modern times, but most men, to my knowledge, aren't being like, you know what, I would marry you, but you only got an associate's degree. If you had a bachelor's now, I would date you. Like most men aren't really approaching relationships
I
like
don't
that.
know, Jeff. I
Uh,
hear some of
I,
my friends on these dating apps, but keep
uh,
going.
yeah, listen, we can definitely disagree, but the overwhelming majority of men aren't looking at the difference between 50,000 and 60, 70,000 to determine whether or not you're a suitable, whether he likes you, whether he's attracted to you, whether or not he wants to take you out. Now, student loan debt, he may pay attention to that a little bit, because that wasn't something a lot of us had to think about in the past. But now we may factor that in. But no. So the point I'm making is there's a level of, again, if I'm saying an incentive that we want to put in place for the child that we raised and raise them to certain standards, knowing that the ways in which we can further bless them is based on traditions that they continue and uphold to. How about we incentivize that? Wedding gifts, graduation gifts. You get what I'm saying? Like, no one would say, well, you're only going to college to get money. No, but if you get this degree and my parent or your dad or mom is able to bless you in some way, that's an excellent bonus to doing something you
Yeah.
probably should be doing. So that's where I'm coming from. Where, yeah, for every 80% of people who are doing it for the right reasons, I'm sure there's going to be people that are doing it for the wrong reasons. My whole point is, I think that we need to start attaching uh, benefits and incentives for our adult children to consider as additional forms of blessings and investments when they're moving in the right direction. I think it could be helpful.
I think you also continue to be an example,
Mm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Jeff is very technical because of his background, and I agree to a certain extent. But what about showing it? Like your kids see, even though your daughter is saying that, she's saying that based on her experience and what the pool looks like for her.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She's not saying it based on not being, all of the other things. She's saying this because she sees a loving example right in the front of her, two-parent household, parents that are not just coexisting, because we
Right.
know
Mm-hmm.
parents they just coexist, and that is like the worst thing to show your kids, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But that she sees that you guys are best friends and that you have this good relationship. She sees it as an example, and then she's going out and she's seeing Buddy with his pants hanging off his ass,
Right.
hoodies in
Right.
90-degree weather. He cursing walking through the mall.
No iron.
He has no on. He's not even holding the door when she walks through the damn
Right.
door. He's
Right.
literally letting it go in her face. She's seeing all of that in her own, you know what I'm saying? In her
Right.
own pool. So that is why she's made that assumption. And I just think we have to address what they are looking at when it comes to this is who I'm supposed to marry.
Right.
Yeah.
These are my options. And I think that same thing for young men too. You got the girls who have no respect for themselves. They're dressing the way that they dress. They're conducting themselves the way that they conduct themselves. They have all this attitude. Like they're looking at the same way. Like this is the pool that I have.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like my sons didn't see a good marriage with my first marriage. There was domestic abuse, there was verbal abuse, like all of those things. And that's why I decided to end it, because it wasn't worth me just to have a two-parent home anymore when there was a toxic environment for not only myself, but also my children. Now
Right.
they see me in a loving relationship with someone who's loved me more than my own parents have ever loved
Mm-hmm.
me. They
Right.
see how this man honors me, how he caters to me, how we cater to one another, how we sit and laugh. Like they see that now. And one respects it and honors it, and the other one, he's the young boy with his pants hanging off his ass in the hoodie in 90 degrees. So,
Yeah.
Kendall's absolutely right about the market being significantly different for both sexes of how to choose. My
Mm.
concern, believe it or not, my concern is actually that it's significantly worse for women than
Oh
it is
yeah.
for men.
Oh yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
And part of it, and I think this is artificial in nature. Part of it is just the sheer amount of what, and it makes sense. They say that when women accomplish more socioeconomically, that their
Mm.
standards improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yes.
When you leave, if you so basically women, if they come out of school and they're starting with 40,000, 50,000,
Mm.
70, 80, $100,000, the pool of men that they now think qualify for them
Yeah.
shrinks.
Right.
Oh yes.
Whereas, and this is what I was alluding to back before, the more money that most men make, the less relevant how much money she makes becomes.
Mm.
Right.
Because you know what I'm saying? Where it's almost, and it makes sense because his pool actually widens the more
Right.
money that
Mm.
Right.
he makes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
So
true.
because now he goes, when she was 18, a whole bunch of people all of a sudden was interested in trying to deal with her. When she was 21, she's getting guys that's in her younger than her, 20s, 30s, 40s, potentially even 50s that see her and now want to talk to her. When she's
Right.
25, same rules apply.
Mm.
That until they hit about 30, 35, 40, depending on
Yeah.
what they bless, and how they take care of themselves and how they
Mm.
bless with and all of that, right? Her market value, she has so much room of age brackets of where she can date, who she can talk to, and who she can do life with. An
Mm.
18-year-old boy can't do much of anything for most women. A
Mm.
21-year-old male, for most women, they're not interested in, even when they were the same age.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So until he hits the 25, 30,
Mm.
30, until he starts to reach his financial peak, then the roles reverse. And when he's 30 years old and 35 years old and he's bringing in 150,000, 200,000 a year,
Mm.
guess what? All the options he didn't have at 21, now he does.
That's
Yeah.
valid.
Right.
That's a valid
I,
So
point.
it does shift and it does change. And I'm gonna be honest with you, when you say, well, what can we do and what can we teach? I would argue you have to actually teach both sexes the value of what they're looking for, but the time period of when they should be making the most use of it. When you're
mm.
18 years old and you're planning on going to college and you're not picking a trade as a man, 9 out of 10 times today, it makes no sense for you to go out there and waste your time because you're going to be
Right.
chasing a lot of women that don't want you. You're going through heartache. You're feeling like you're being used. You're chasing a
Mm.
lot of women who are your age and saying they want something better, bigger,
Mm-hmm.
stronger, and more money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can't talk and deal with women, but 25 to 35 is probably a really good age where you've built up your life, you've built up your finances, you built up your resources, and you've built a life to welcome someone into versus trying to get them in their minds to settle for a guy that doesn't have it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the flip side, for women, young ladies especially, I'd be talking to them from 14 to 18. I'm letting them know when that clock starts, at 18, there is a window where a huge percentage of men you're going to have options to. You're going to have to be very intentional about who you're going to give that time, money, energy, and access to your body to. Because if
Mm.
you don't, time's going to go past. And one or two, three baby daddies later, a whole bunch of trauma later, now when you're like, well, I'm healed and I'm whole, but you have all this previous stuff that you're bringing with you, the pool of men, and you've been working and building up your career and resume, the pool of men that you can look at and that will look at you is going to get smaller and smaller. So that's
Mm.
for me personally. I think if we told both sexes at an earlier age about how to be intentional and
Mm.
learn and know what the opposite sex is looking for in them, they can actually make the best and most of their time versus wasting their time and then feeling like they're constantly being disappointed and hurt by the other sex.
So, okay, maybe this is because I'm aging.
Gracefully, girl. Gracefully.
Thank you. At what point do we introduce the concept of love and compassion and someone who takes care of you in an emotional sense, not just physical? I'm sorry, not just financial,
Yeah.
but when do those things come into play? Because I I think there's something in, and I get that where we started in our marriage, we were at a certain place in life. Neither one of us had anything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And we built together. And to me, there's value in that also. But if
Mm-hmm.
we're focusing on that financial aspect, that, what you have to offer, that window of time, where's the happy median in that? Because for me,
Mm-hmm.
um, part of my joy and being in a relationship has nothing to do with any of that part. It's that I have a safe place
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
be myself and I can decompress. And as I heal and grow, I have someone who's supporting me. Sometimes he corrects me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he lets me know you could have done better. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I can take that from him because we have that safe relationship. So where does all that come into play?
So for being, I think there's self love that needs to start
Mm-hmm.
as
Yes.
well. So we could
Yes.
teach them the values. We can teach them the age range window. They have to have value for themselves. I think we need to
Mm-hmm.
start there as well. They need to love themselves. And when I say love yourself, not in the selfish way in which some of them do, right?
Yeah.
In a selfless way, meaning I love myself, but I can also be attentive and loving and empathetic and have grace for my partner. For me and my husband, there were times when I made more money than him. I didn't value him any less, but that
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm-hmm.
comes with a level of maturity. We come from
Right.
a different
Right.
generation, and I think that needs to be talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's times like now where I'm no longer in corporate America and I'm really pursuing my purpose and my passion. And he's like, I got you. But then
Mm-hmm.
there were times where I had to have him. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that part is missing. So we have to teach you can't be selfish when you come into a
Yes.
Right.
relationship that
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a healthy marriage and a loving marriage, right? You cannot. So we definitely have to teach that you can't be selfish. That's number
Mm-mm.
one. Yes, you have to love yourself. Yes, there are some boundaries that need to be discussed as well. But in a loving marriage, that's also a partnership. Somebody's going to be up and somebody's going to be down.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
we have to teach our children that as well. We're not all going to be on the same level, but we can't
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
both be down at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when my husband's down, I got to be able to pull him up. And when I'm down, he's got to be able to pull me up. And that is what's missing. And again, it's because of selfishness and who we have become as a society. That's my
Yeah.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's some of the stuff that we also need to be teaching.
Okay, Byron and Margaret. How old were you when you met?
We
When
were
we met, we were what, 16 or
16,
17?
17. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How much student loan debt did you have at that time?
At that time, none, but
Okay,
I made up.
what was what was the average cost for a home?
85, well, in our area, 85 to $100,000 was about the average.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yeah.
it almost required for people to make close to six figures or well into the six figures to get that type of home?
It wasn't then.
Not then.
Not then.
Okay. So what your daughter is expressing
Mm-hmm.
is a
Mm.
reality that I don't think people who generationally didn't have to experience it in quite the same way fully can grasp and understand.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
People are having to come to grips with acknowledging love is important, love can be valuable,
Mm.
but if these other boxes aren't coming with it, it's not even it's a non-starter for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I'm going to say it as the best way to describe it is if the average woman, let alone a black woman, if we keep saying that they're the most educated, they get the one that's getting all the degrees, they're the one that's buying homes at a faster pace than men.
Yeah.
Guess what they're bringing with them? Not at 16, where they don't have student loan debt, where they don't have a mortgage to pay for, where they don't have all this other stuff. They're bringing other things with them that now changes simply whether or not I like him or not, whether or
Mm.
not he likes or loves me or not. So when you think about it generationally, people, but women specifically, are bringing more to the table in a good way, but also in terms of debt and expenses and responsibilities. So they're now looking at the dating market through that lens.
Mm.
So by default, it's one thing for people to say love's missing. It's another thing for me to say, I wonder if the emphasis of feelings, emotions, and love can potentially be a detriment to how marriages lasted in the past. Because Kendall kind of alluded to it before.
Mm.
I do not think that a lot of the marriages that we kind of granderize and mythologize from back in the day stayed together primarily and exclusively based because of love.
I agree.
Right.
It's
Mm.
not true. My grandmother would tell you,
Yeah.
almost no woman that I've talked to that's been married, it was Michelle Obama just came out during her podcast and kind of talked about her seasons and periods where they were not in love, but they were
Mm-hmm.
not doing well. But if you
Yeah.
have a generation watching all these romantic shows, movies, Hollywood, that keep saying this is what romance and love looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Mm.
don't experience it, when you don't feel it, you
Mm.
have options to go out and find it again.
Yeah.
So, as important as love is, one way I would word it is whatever religious text, ancient culture, ancient tradition you're talking about when it came to marriage, where was the love when your parents picked your partner? Where
Yeah.
was the love when the king just said, that's going to be my wife? Where
Mm-hmm.
was the love when women had no option of where to leave? I mean, that they could leave. The
Mm.
reality is, as great as love is, it's probably secondary to duty,
Mm.
commitment, oath. Duty, commitment, oath are going to override my feelings in this moment, this season of struggle. It's going to override the temptation of what I got going on. The love, we'll have high seasons of feeling in love, being in
That's
love, and then
true.
we'll have other. And I'm not saying love we should put at the bottom of the list. I
Yeah.
just think it's probably number 4 after commitment, the oath you make, and just in the duty that you're holding yourself to. Love's going to make you feel different about what you need to share, give, and provide. Oath, duty, and commitment doesn't change. And a lot of people are actually approaching marriages primarily based on love, which is the reason for why we end up with the results that we do, and not
Mm.
based on those other things I just said. So for me, it's actually not about whether or not people are initiating and doing this because of love. I actually think that they are. It's just that love isn't enough. You need more than love. And so my argument is, again, most people I think that are walking down the aisle probably do love each other, especially in today's market when everybody's saying that marriage ain't worth it. If you're going to do it, you probably love each other. The
Right.
problem is love isn't all you need. You need a little bit more than that to be able to overcome life's challenges and circumstances.
Mm.
Right. And I when I said love, I
Mm-hmm.
meant love, but also like, because that's one of the things, like liking your
Yeah.
partner.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
for me, the idea of oath, commitment, and duty, um, that's where
That kind of falls into
the
the like.
Love
compassion, the
makes
love,
you
the like,
love
right,
makes
Yeah.
you committed.
right,
Love
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
you keep your duty. Love
right,
makes you like all of those things. Love is a very important part that it ties you to all of those other things.
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
I think that, like Kendall, what you were saying, there are times when you pick up. There were times when I picked up, and I'm supporting him and things like that. To me, those things, that commitment is gonna come through and be easier when I love you and I like you, and
Absolutely.
I know that
Yeah.
this is just a season, so to speak. Um, but if we're leading with the other stuff, like, I don't even know, does that mean if there's a shift financially, does that shift the relationship also into a place that, well, I was willing to marry you here, but then
Mm-hmm.
once we got to this point, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So those types of things are concerning for me. um, I can see both sides of it, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's a bleak
It's
outlook.
If
definitely a harsh reality when you
yeah.
think about, because I never thought about it. I remember a while ago, I have a friend of mine who's a real estate agent in Atlanta, and he posted a video and showing, how the standard apartment was like $2,200 a month.
Yep.
And I remember looking at showing her that, and I was like, man, I mean, when we started out, it was like
650.
700.
Right.
700
My first apartment was like 650.
Right.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's like how, so I get that aspect of how do you plan to, so you have to factor all that in a lot more than we necessarily had to, but it's like, it's still kind of scary, like to think, how do you, because like you say, we didn't have to think about that from that standpoint, but now this generation does. And it's like, how do you box all that into a package to say, hey, there's a benefit to doing this. When you have two incomes, they can spread a lot further than one. But then, like you said, you have to think about, you know, what each person is going to bring to the table and what value that's going to be.
Wow. So far. Man.
So we, like our other guests, we meet beforehand. We have this discussion. We had this laid out plan of topics and things, and we started on that path.
Yeah, we started out good, but
we took a turn, and it's okay.
It took a good turn.
Right, it's
a really
okay.
good turn.
It gives us the opportunity to invite them back.
Yes.
But before we invite them back for another episode, you got to finish this one out. So make sure that you come back next time for part 2 of this episode with Kendall and Jeff.
All right.